All right. Yo, 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 yo. What's up, what's up, what's up? Give up the rock. And hello to my fellow revolutionaries. You know who you are. Let me just get the chat box up so I can see you and hear you. No, so I can just see you. I can't hear you, but I can communicate with you. Yo, 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 yo. What's up, what's up? Give up the rock. Thank you, Avalava, for keeping Discord alive. I know that you're there. And yo, 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 what's up, what's up, what's up? Give up the Dwayne. I know that's definitely 4IS in the house. And I am hoping, and I mean this, I really do, I'm hoping that everybody had a good weekend. And can I just say, because I think I've actually figured it out, ladies and gentlemen, right here, monumentous occasion, I've figured out TikTok. I'm running 2 concurrent streams. Now, stop, all right? Hold your fucking applause. Calm the fuck down. I know Avalava right now is cheering because this tech illiterate man has just figured out, and like this has been fucking 2 weeks in the making here, but has just figured out how to run 2 concurrent streams out of the matrix, like not through conventional means. I've figured out a very good band-aid solution, which is almost too good, I would say, if I would toot my own horn. So if you're watching this and you're joining us from TikTok, this is an absolute watershed moment for spreading the revolutionary dream. We are reaching out to as many of ye old working class people as possible. And so what better way to reach a broad network of working people than to go right where they are on social media, on various platforms, which is the dream, isn't it, Avalava? I'm assuming it is. Yeah, man. Good job. Thank you. Thank you. I will be applying at my local business or enterprise to be part of the IT department moving forward, because I'm just so absolutely stoked at how good my IT skills were this time around. So, like I said, if you're joining us from TikTok, this is a fucking revolutionary moment, because what we do on this channel, this is the MysterE movement. We talk about all things revolutionary. So today, we're going to be having a look at Palantir. So if you're not aware, or if you're not across it, Palantir is one nefarious organization. And so like maybe people aren't across this. So let me give you some context here. So Palantir, and you might know this guy. You might have seen this guy before. I don't know. Alex Karp. Can you see that face? Can you see that dude there? That's Alex Karp. He is one of the founders of Palantir, along with another gentleman by the name of Peter Thiel. Now, you've probably heard that nefarious dude before. If you haven't, let me give you a quick rundown on what the hell I'm talking about. Okay, so we live in an age now where we have moved beyond capitalism as we know it. Now, someone like Yanis Varoufakis, if you've ever heard that name, describes our post-capitalistic situation as techno-feudalism. So we don't live under market principles anymore. It's not this golden age of capitalism where we just have all these businesses competing with one another in the free market, and that's how we get all of our stuff delivered to us. We have more moved into a stage of capitalism where the big fish have definitely eaten all of the other fish, like literally all of the other fish. And because capital becomes like to be able to exist in like an industry, let's say, or in the financial sector, or in the insurance sector, or in the healthcare sector, or in providing planes for global transport. In order to exist in that type of capitalistic environment, you have these large scale corporations that have basically monopolized their entire industries. Maybe they run off a duopoly, maybe they run off a monopsony. If you've ever heard that term before, get your dictionaries out, ladies and gentlemen, because we're going for a wild ride today. But you have these centralized, you have the centralization of all the goods and services being offered by less and less people and more powerful institutions, which are backed by the state. That's right. Believe it. The free market is not so free. After all, ladies and gentlemen, we are shattering people's worldviews today. It's what we like to do on a Monday morning as part of this movement. Now, as companies, as things become more and more centralized in fewer and fewer hands, it becomes like less capitalistic in the traditional sense, in that free market style sense that we tend to think of capitalism as being. And so like when these people have incredible power and they don't have to compete with other people to provide the best products, the best services, the best consumer articles anymore, then what the hell do they actually do? Well, they just maintain their control over their industry and bleed it for what it is. So they're no longer actually producing value in the traditional capitalist sense, because like they're producing something and they're being cutting edge and surviving in the market and then hoping that turns a profit. They're like planning their profits, basically. Basically, these large corporations plan economies. The kind of stuff that, you know, capitalist apologists and free market lovers would hate communists for, which is like planned economics. But that's the reality of where capitalism has gone today. And so now we have in this, think of this picture that I've set up for you, which is kind of the way that capitalism has run for, like, let's say the last 100 years. Okay, let's just say that. Oh, Dilemmas 85. Hey, my brothers, from other mothers and sisters, from other Mr. E's. All right. Dilemmas returning for a wild round number 2, potentially 3 or 4. But I think the first time you came along for a live stream was yesterday, actually, for that impromptu King's Day parade military spectacle, can we just say. But yeah, welcome. And I hope you enjoy today's events, because we're going to be looking at Palantir, which I've been trying to explain and give like a big broad-ranging understanding of where we are at in history and why we should be looking at Palantir in the first place. So let me get back to my little rant here. Ooh, we've got some people in the house. People are checking in for roll call. We've got Kenna Chaos. I mean, I don't think that every industrial capitalism is normally innovative. Take light bulbs, for example. Kenna Chaos, hello, and I don't think I've ever seen you in a stream before. Welcome, and like, if you are new to a stream, can you please state that, or maybe you've been watching in the background and this is your first time commenting, but like, yeah, let us know if you're new. And how'd you find the movement? Indoctrinathan, morning. I hope you're all feeling less rotted out than I am after watching 6 hours of Turning Point USA Young Women's Leadership Summit. Fuck, you put yourself through that? That's pretty intense, man. Turning Point USA Young Women's Leadership Summit. Eh? Talk about hypocrisy when it comes to being anti-DEI, having a specifically and exclusively Young Women's Leadership Summit. Eh? Nah, dude. Kenna Chaos says, nah, dude, I've been hovering in vids, but my first stream. Oh, welcome. Xanthophil, hello all. And welcome to our American correspondent today, because I'm assuming most of the other people that are joining us today are Australian. If that doesn't apply to you, Kenna Chaos, let us know, because we would like to know, as part of our little motley crew and United Nations experiment over here, where you're joining us from. So let us know. But yeah, look, I see your point and I raise you. Okay, I don't think that even industrial capitalism is normally innovative. I would argue that yes, industrial capitalism would have definitely gone through a phase of the laws of coercive competition, as Marx would have described it. So you have like people that are actually competing against each other in a market, like in an open, transparent way. And then like the laws of coercive competition in the Marxist sense are like one person develops a technological advantage or like a boost to their productivity. But technically, or usually it's technological. They develop said advantage and they are able to produce products at a less of a margin than others. And so they gain more surplus value from their enterprise when considered in the context of their competitors, and then everybody else catches up. Now, like that is actually happening right now with the various AI platforms that are vying for becoming God of AI in a very limited sense, but like let's just go with that argument. And like, you know, you're constantly seeing reports coming out and it's just like, oh, you know, Grok's taking the lead, and it's just like Gemini's taking the lead, or OpenAI is back in front kind of thing. You're like they're instituting small technological changes to just pip their competitors and stay ahead of the game. Now, like you could argue that they've got a lot of this stuff in reserve and they're not really showing what's everything to the public, and like you'd probably be right in that assessment. But like, you know, that level of like, oh, let's just like get the edge on our competitors and then like dominate the market. That is like the laws of coercive competition. And like when it came to these light bulb manufacturers, like from my understanding of that situation was pretty much a monopolistic move, whether or not it was just one company that did it or like a cabal. They got together and were just like, yo, whoa, we're not making any money on light bulbs because they last too long kind of thing. Let's inbuild into them a shorter lifespan so we can continue to make profits. And so like that's a way that capital looks to survive in a system which requires its constant expansion. And so like while that might not be like true centralization in absolute circumstance in one company's hands, I would say to a certain extent, oops, I've lost the chat. I would say to a certain extent that's like monopolistic behaviors, because like you're getting together with your competitors to corner a market or something like that. So I hear you, and it's a good point. But like I would say that like each phase of the industrial revolutions that we've been through, or technological revolutions that we've been through, has moments where like competition is rife and people are scrambling to dominate one another, and then like, you know, it separates the men from the boys at a certain point, and like, you know, the cream rises to the top, the big ones eat the little ones, etc., etc., and then you have kind of just like monopolies in industries. Like you can see it all around you. Like you just have some industries that are completely monopolized by some people, and like, you know, during the neoliberal era, like even like, you know, the local shops was like not even immune to that type of stuff. Like your local hairdresser, your local greengrocer, your local whatever service that you're used to having, that was all subsumed into now what we have is like shopping malls, shopping centers, and all that sort of stuff. So like, you know, nothing was safe, and you have like a series of people that monopolize those type of small market and localized consumption experiences. And so like you have a lot of this type of concentration. So at this level of concentration that we have now, especially in the tech industry, some people would argue, and we've been following someone, everything became a franchise. And like, because that's a franchise is another way to make money on top of making money, right? It's like the layers of inception are absolutely incredible. But like, you know, some people would argue, and we've been going over quite a lot of her work, by the name of Shoshana Zuboff. Shoshana, baby, please. Best American name ever, or best name said in an American accent ever. Xanthophyll, you'll have to tell me what you think of my American impression there. Be happy to know your thoughts. But Shoshana Zuboff, if you haven't come across this woman, let me get a picture of her up, actually. Shoshana. No, Zuboff. Give me Zuboff, please. There we go. So this is the woman. Imagine if the truth became a franchise. Actually, you know, it's an interesting topic, can I just say? Because like I've been thinking a lot about the idea of misinformation and like what that really means. And so like talking about franchising on truths, hey, there's nothing like being able to classify different levels of information typology so you can control it and turn it into a real business, if you know what I mean. Not that like people haven't turned information into a business before, but like, yeah, it's nothing like the AI era or the automation era to take that to the next level. This is Shoshana Zuboff, you know, intellectual from the 80s, I would say, given the style. But like she has systematically and rather methodically gone through and described this phenomenon that we live in now, this stage called surveillance capitalism. And so surveillance capitalism is kind of, as the name suggests, it's a form of capitalism where there are huge players out there that survive off the collection of data to turn that into a profitable endeavor. And so, like, you know, we're all across this, that our data is extracted en masse, and we're all across this idea that this data is not just being collected so they have, you know, interesting information about consumers and can push products onto them better. So it's not just like to, you know, turbocharge the advertising industry by giving them better information about people. The idea of surveillance capitalism and watching what you do is also to modify your behavior. And so like every time you talk, if you have a home assistant of some sort and you're talking to that thing, every time you touch your phone, every time you listen to music on Spotify, like they're collecting data on you, they're selling that on to third parties, which is huge money in and of itself. And then they're using that stuff to control you. And so like surveillance capitalism is this late stage of capitalism, what she would argue is the stage that we're in now, where like that type of stuff is way more important than like, you know, your traditional industrial capitalists. It's way more important than like the financial sector, which is like kind of reigns supreme over capitalism, I would say, for like at least the last 100 years, arguably, if not more, I guess you could say. Like the financial sector has been huge because like as capital gets more intensive, like in order to run an industry, like 200 years ago, if you want to make shoes, you got a lot of people and like a lot of materials together and like they spend a lot of time making shoes. But like if you want to make shoes now, you have to have like big machinery to do that and spend a lot of money on machinery, upfront costs, and that type of stuff is expensive. There's only a handful of people out there that could upfront that cost. And so in the face of like intensification of the means of production, you have over financialization to compensate for that. So you have a credit system built around financing capital and capital investment. And so that's why you have the rise of financial capital and like potentially even the period of financial capitalism, which reigns supreme over the economy. And now you have surveillance capitalism. Like even the financial capitalists are beholden to the surveillance capitalists now. Like the surveillance capitalists aren't just like, you know, Facebook. It's not just Meta who's watching you and like feeding off your daily habits and your like buttons, your like to dislike ratios. It's also like Microsoft. Like every business now, whether you like it or not, is also or has a software arm to it or a software department in it. Like everybody exists in the physical realm as well as the digital realm. And so these surveillance capitalists control all the digital highways. They control all of the virtual realm. And like we are living in a world now where the virtual realm is pretty fucking important. And like you could arguably say, like if you listen to someone like, you know, Mark Zuckerberg, who like, you know, goes on to interviews and tells people that like, you know, soon you're not really going to need friends anymore. You know, maybe you just need an AI companion. And so like in a world where we are like it's like no joke, like we are going increasingly digital, then like, you know, the surveillance capitalists and the landscapes, the digital realms, which they control, they have monopoly control over, is like a totally new form of economy. It's absolutely unbeknownst to the human race. Like we have no idea of how to deal with stuff like this. as a species, let alone as like, people that like to think we have control over like economics and politics and social interactions and all that sort of stuff. And so we have moved into basically a new world here where you have these large-scale capitalists, I guess you could call them, techno-feudalists, some call them, the tech bros, the broligarchy, whatever you have termed for these people, they are significant, and I believe they are the most important section of the bourgeoisie. If you want any more evidence of this, all you have to do is look at who was front and center at Trump's inauguration. He invited the tech bros, and the biggest and most important tech bros, to be there to pledge fealty to the emperor of world capitalism in the citadel of the capitalistic world, the United States of America. Kenna Chaos says, I have a feeling that a lot of what she says, like the ranges of which data is collated, such as through your TV, is out of the grasp of the consumer. Privacy, read surveillance policies, for example. A lot of what she says, like the ranges of which data is collated, is out of the grasp of the consumer. Yeah, like this stuff is incredibly in the shadows too. Like they are not overt about this one and broadcasting, hey, we're taking your data and we're collecting data on you in this fashion. Like a lot of this stuff, like in true Silicon Valley ethos, is like move fast and break things. Basically, have absolutely no moral or ethical restraints on how to use this technology, expand it as fast as possible, make it as ubiquitous as much as possible, and then ask questions. Shoot first, ask questions later. This is literally the Silicon Valley way, but they also work in the shadows. Google spent a lot of time and has spent a lot of time kind of covering up their activities and not making it very easily to understand what they're like collecting data on you about. They've been caught out a number of times doing stuff like this. So has Meta. So have many social media agents and big tech corporations. They work behind the scenes. And like, it's not until like, I guess investigative journalists and whistleblowers come out with this stuff, do they come out and say, oh yeah, fine. Like when, Facebook has been like basically nabbed multiple times for doing some pretty scary looking surveillance on like, not just general population, like adults and stuff like that, like teenagers, like vulnerable young teenagers, not like 18-year-olds, like, 13-year-olds and stuff like that, isolating them for behavioral experimentation and to push them towards their advertisers, to push advertising on them for their clients, actually. They've been, the next day Mark Zuckerberg will get up at like a forum or a conference and something and start and literally say things like, privacy, like we stand for privacy. Privacy is the most important thing and they've just been caught out doing like some nefarious data scraping operations on vulnerable sections of the population, and they're just like, we believe in privacy, we will bring you privacy, kind of thing. So like they are very, very guarded about like how the optics of all of this sort of stuff looks, and it looks pretty bad. Like, collecting large amounts of data on people to use against them, not only to just push products onto them, but to control them, is some pretty scary territory. And yes, they have been, how's the double think on that one for IS? Yes, how's the fucking double think on that one? It's pretty scary. It's just like, here it is, we are trolling you for data and using it against you, and it's just like, but our number one concern is privacy. They believe in privacy, theirs, not ours. Oh, they believe in privacy, all right. I guess it just depends who you're talking to. But like, in the face of all that, like, let's have an example then. Like, what the hell does that even mean? Like, okay, they collect some data on me, but it's been incredibly convenient. It's not intrusive. I don't care if they watch what websites I go to. You know, maybe they'll even make better suggestions for me to buy something next time. Well, here you go. We read a part of a report. And when I say part, I read the executive summary, but it sounds better if I say that I read it. So I read part of a report by Ollie Atlas is in the house here doing the roll call. As always, good to see Ollie Atlas. And we have 2 American correspondents here, just in case anyone was wondering. So we read a report by Mozilla Firefox, actually. And they had done a review of Western car manufacturers who like develop cars, still develop cars in today's market, and they are not developing vehicles. They're not developing luxurious ways to get you from A to B. No, that business model is a thing of the past. They basically described the modern car as a surveillance apparatus on wheels. Now you're probably thinking, oh yeah, well I just don't connect my Bluetooth, my phone to the car through Bluetooth, and they won't be able to monitor me. But like, here you go. They're doing much more than that. When you're holding the steering wheel, they're testing your blood pressure. When you sit your fat ass down on the front seat, those assholes are weighing you. Every time you get into the car, if you have a modern car that's connected to the internet somehow, it's feeding data back to the manufacturers about whether you had a big weekend, you put a few kilos on or something like that. They are monitoring you non-stop. And it's not even for stuff that you understand either. And it's like, you could only imagine. Like, just think about it for a second. You could only imagine what type of profile they have on you at any one time. Like MysterE right now, he's coming off a live stream. He's feeling a little bit excited. Must have really enjoyed himself. Let's push a product at him, suggest it, but we'll do it right. Let's suggest some music that he likes. So we'll heighten his emotions a little bit more. And then we'll pop up with an ad for him to go and buy some champagne at Beer, Wine and Spirits, because he's obviously wanting to celebrate right now. And we can tell that he'll buy champagne because it's Friday afternoon and he typically drinks more on a Friday afternoon because we've looked at his messages. And he gets a little bit rowdy in the group chat with his friends when he's had a few to drink. And so it's Friday afternoon and he's starting to get a little bit rowdy while he's typing his messages and stuff like that. Oh, he's erasing what he's writing while he's typing in that message to his significant other. He's obviously doubting what he's thinking about himself. Let's hit him up for something else related to his anxiety or the way that he speaks to his significant other. We'll give him relationship counseling or a trick to how to pick up and be more flirtatious or something like that. They monitor the amount of information that they have on you. You would not be able to, you wouldn't be able to understand yourself properly the first time you read it. And this is again backed up by stuff that she's said. She's got internal documents from people at Google and stuff like that, where they're interviewing, their HR department is interviewing them because they're being investigated by the government or something, the Department of so what's the name, the National Trade Commission or something like that in America. And they're going around internally and just should we know anything about this? Should we worry about this? And they're asking questions of top level executives, and executives are just look, if people found out about this stuff, we'd be fucked, because people would be really scared by the levels of information that we have on them. So we need to keep this under wraps as much as possible. And this is internal documentation. People would be terrified about what we're doing and collecting here. So this stuff is real. And so this is what surveillance capitalism is apparently all about. And this is the world we are in at the moment. So she doesn't go as far as to call it anything beyond capitalism, whereas Yanis Varoufakis would call it techno-feudalism, because he believes these people control these digital fiefdoms and they no longer seek profits in the traditional sense. They live off rentier, so they are rentier class. They live off subscriptions. They live off fealty and tribute that is paid to them by the capitalist class who produces value, and the working class and the consumer classes out there that, like I said, pay them in installments as opposed to owning anything. You've heard that famous line, eh? You'll own nothing and you'll be happy about it, like that kind of thing. Like, that's the world where we're moving to. And you like more and more assessments that you have of various, liberal commentators, right-wing commentators, and stuff like that. It's like, the middle class has been demolished. People don't own anything anymore. And that's why people are all upset, because people don't own stuff. This is specifically what is being engineered by a surveillance capitalist class and a financial capitalist elite as well, who are supported by the surveillance capitalists, because they want you to live off credit anyway, so they don't really want you to own anything. They want you to continue to have to pay them, take out more loans and continue to be in debt, and you'll be a slave to them, and you can be a slave to the surveillance capitalists as well and live on their digital realms and pay them subscriptions for everything. Dilemmas 85 says, yeah, they believe, beat the system, just stay drunk all the time. Yeah, they won't know where MysterE is at, because he doesn't know where he's at, because he's all over the place. So he's getting pretty sloppy. Hard to predict when drunk. Thank you. If we're going to write a digital resistance handbook, I think Dilemmas 85 should be in there crafting some of the points of digital resistance. It's if you don't want the algorithm to track you well, be unpredictable, and nothing helps more than being off your face all the time. Ollie Atlas, in techno-feudalism, what would a kingdom be? The idea of a monk must terrify those kind of folks. That's pretty interesting. What would a kingdom be? Yanis would describe it as a fiefdom. So fiefdom is kind of a subsection of a kingdom. So you have one lord that rules over the lands that they control, and the people in that land are tied to that land and pledge fealty to that person. They take direction from that person. That person is also supposed to protect them. That's the point. But they pledge fealty to them, and the products of their labor go to them in the first instance, and then any additional product that they make, they can live off, kind of thing. So a digital kingdom may be more or better described as, how Yanis uses it, a digital fiefdom. So a virtual space where they control everything. So right now, in a private space, if I walked onto somebody's private property, into a shop, I'm beholden to their instruction to a certain degree. What the fuck? That was really weird. Can you hear me now? Anyone? It's pretty bad though, isn't it? My mic just died. Like seriously, like the tech issues that I'm having are killing me. He speaks. Voltator. I'm assuming the quality of the mic is pretty shit. Hello, hello. Is anybody out there? Could be better, but we can handle it. Yeah, but it sucks. This fucking microphone sucks. Fuck this. Oh my god. Like mid straight, the microphone dies. Like, what are the fucking odds of that? Seriously. This has got to be some type of joke. Who would have thought? Really? No, not as good quality. No, no, it's bad. Fuck, what am I going to do? Might have an alternative. Give me like 2 minutes. I'm gonna try and find an alternative. Give me a moment. AI doesn't want you talking about this stuff. Like this is crazy, man. Like honestly, like how did it die just like that? Bastard. Give me 2 minutes. Well, I have established the issue. My USB input for my microphone is just dead. It just died. So I don't know how to. I'm not going to be able to fix the audio quality at all, and so I'm going to be speaking out of a laptop microphone, like I'm doing a Teams meeting or something like that, or a Zoom call. Um, that's really shit. Anyway, we're gonna have to continue. If you want to stick around for this, we're just gonna be like continuing with our little discussion before. Um, but like the quality is going to be low, let's just say, in terms of being able to get anything good out of a laptop microphone. So apologies, but like I have no idea what's going on here. It's just one tech nightmare after another. And like I was saying, I was so proud of myself for like figuring the tech out before. Look at me now. Look at me now. The sound is back. Parenti had many microphone troubles too. No one said the revolution would be easy. Thank you, Avalava. Thanks for the moral support in Techland. Can't believe this. This is fucked, honestly. And I was just talking about like how wonderful technology is and how it's changing the world. No need to. Let's get into this. Please keep going. The ideas are still important. Yeah, got it. Got it. All right, anyway, I believe where I was up was kind of making my trajectory slower and slowly towards the idea of why the fuck are we talking about Palantir? And so, like, I believe where we were at with Ollie Atlas's question was like the digital, like, what's a digital kingdom look like? And basically, I believe that, like, as Yanis Varoufakis talks about it, a digital kingdom is maybe not the right word use, but like a digital fiefdom. And so a fiefdom is a place that, a lord sees over and controls with complete impunity. And so, like, if you're going to go into a digital fiefdom, it's not comparable to a shop because, like, at a shop, you've walked around with your autonomy. You can decide to go in and out as you please. No one can control your senses. But in like the digital realm, if you go on Amazon or something like that, like Jeff Bezos controls everything you see, everything you hear, and potentially everything you touch. If you're that way inclined and you're working in virtual reality or something like that. But like if he has 20 products and he only wants you to see two, then you will only see two. Um, as opposed to you walking around a shop floor and seeing it all for yourself. And so like the digital kind of the way that a digital fiefdom would work or a digital feudal landscape would work is one of complete control. Like even the person next to you, like in the shops, you could turn around and say whatever you want about this product and say it's a piece of shit. Or say that like, this shop isn't what it used to be, management changed. But like you can't even do that in a digital setting anymore. And so like the digital marketplace is not the marketplace of old where people get together and like you need to have people that are producing value because that's what capitalism is really all about, is to produce value to a certain level and to be able to reproduce society based on that level of value production. And like capitalism has never experimented with a form of value production where there's zero feedback or autonomy from the consumption class. And so we'll be all ruled over like feudal underlings, but with no sense of feudal solidarity. There was a lot of communal good that came out of the feudal relationship, but there is no solidarity in a digital environment. One where, as we've talked about with someone like Mark Zuckerberg, if you want all your friends to be AI companions and you piss off Mark Zuckerberg, then he'll just turn off your AI friends. So this is a world of complete isolation. So talking about like techno-feudal lords controlling everything, in the physical realm, we'll all be living in individual little boxes, individual little silos where we don't really go out and interact with others through fear of the other generally, because people are dangerous. We will be convinced through things like
the words terrorism, or through events like global pandemics when we're scared of just interacting people with other people because they might make you sick, and we'll continuously retreat into a world where the only acceptable forms of interaction are undertaken online. And in those online spaces, there will be no such thing as independent solidarity, because, like, how do you really exist in somebody else's digital space? And so, like, people make the argument open source software and blockchain technologies, all of this stuff which can be harnessed by real people, can like resist all of this type of move. But like, in the face of the incredible resources they have at their disposal, um, who knows, Ollie Atlas? Who knows exactly what a digital kingdom or fiefdom will actually look like, and how it will affect um, the core social relations within the capitalist mode of production. Sound quality is on par when Geordie sits sideways 1 meter from his mic. Well, at least we've got some Voltaire, glorious, magnificent freedom cities. Well, like, there's another part of the whole digital fiefdom, um, neo-reactionary complex that is coming out of this tech world and surveillance capitalist world that we're living in. Is like, these people really believe in two options for them. There is basically exiting society and creating their own worlds, which is what these freedom cities will be. These freedom cities will be based on the idea of the network state, which has been modeled already. And it's where these big tech bros, these billionaires, get to create private cities in a libertarian dream where they control everything, they have their own sovereignty, and the only way you can come in and out of a place like that is to buy your way in and out of that society. And so, like, freedom cities, they're coming, especially if the world is surveillance capitalist and techno feudalist. Because, like, the way that the nation state works, the way the sovereignty works, especially in a democratic sense, is a complete restraint on the physical ability for techno feudalists to work and to control the world. So, yeah, freedom cities are coming. So we'll all be living in freedom cities in the real world, cut off from each other, and living our lives vicariously through somebody's digital fiefdom. And whoever subscription you can pay with your meager UBI granted to you from what's left over of the very destroyed, underfunded, and austerity-driven state apparatus, whatever you can scratch out of them in terms of a UBI will be the tithes and the tribute that you pay to your feudal masters, your techno-feudal overlords. So, very bleak stuff, describing it like that. But that's the culmination of kind of everything that we've been speaking about. So, another reason why I'm so insistent on the use of the word protest over riots. A riot is scary and violent and has dangerous people in it. A protest is peaceful, fun, and uplifting for the community. We need to stop fearing each other. Yeah, that's a big call. And I think that's going to be a massive call moving forward in the digital space, is like whether or not people have trust in other humans or not. And like the manufacturing through social media, whether it's like premeditated manufacturing or it's just by coincidence, but the manufacturing of so just give me a second. Yeah, the manufacturing of silos in the digital realm. So social media is really good at like splitting people into little silos, and like everybody gets their worldviews from very restricted means, because they're fed by algorithms to surround themselves with people with similar opinions. Yeah, people in that world are compounded to move towards lesser and lesser real confrontations with real people and other people's ideas. And so they become less and less able to coexist in an environment where there are other people that might see the world a little bit differently to you. And so that makes people toxic to one another on a broad and a large scale. And that's going to be very difficult for people like us, like revolutionaries and people that have an anti-capitalist mindset, maybe people that have a socialist or a communist bent. It's going to make it very difficult because at least back in the day when you had like socialist experiments, you had a lot of solidarity and people understood how community worked and how society worked, and everybody had kind of had to feed off each other and cooperate to make those things work. Yet post-digital or post-surveillance capitalist society, I don't see people relying on each other because they haven't been given the opportunity to understand how important real social relations are. Now, in terms of our ongoing discussion, indoctrination on the word riot or protest, like you can use the word protest all you want. You can literally go out of your way to use the word protest. But if your oppositional media outlet or your oppositional political rival calls it a riot when it clearly is not one, there's nothing that you're going to ever be able to do about that. You will never be able to just choose your words and stop other people from describing your actions as anything but deplorable just because they don't like it. And so I thought about this a bit. I would actually argue that we should own the entire lexicon. Own the word protest, own the word riot, own the word insurrection, own the word invasion. All of these words, as we're describing here, are ways that the current right-wing establishment or conservative establishment in America is describing the events in LA in order to fracture the working class. So they got working class people on one side of America, disgusted and appalled at what's happening on the other side of America because they're using language to break them up. And so on one person might take offense to being called a riot, and the other person might take offense to being called a protest. And that just, like I said, it works to fracture the working class. And so if we take ownership of all the terms and use them interchangeably, or say, yeah, fine, it's that, and own it, then it will have less meaning when used by media outlets and people that are looking to damage the cause, because it won't really affect us, because it's yeah, call it whatever you want, but you know what is really happening here. We're fighting, we are struggling against some institution, some policy, some decision, and something that doesn't reflect our actual interests. Squeeb, welcome. It's a veritable who's who of the YouTube streaming community over here. Welcome to our Monday session. We're supposed to be going into Planet Palantir, but I haven't even got there yet. I'm still doing my introduction. So welcome. We need to stop fearing each other though. Indoctrination. Agree with you 100% there. Dilemmas 85. If a tech bro says they're libertarian, I immediately know they're full of crap. They love libertarian. They love it. But they have absolutely, if they love libertarian so much, they're so far removed from what libertarianism is supposed to be about. They literally have forgotten the word liberty is in there, and liberty comes from the idea of freedom, and they are so far removed from the idea of living in a situation, a social context where you interact with other people, and your freedoms matter just as much as their freedoms do. And so libertarian, tech bros, when they say libertarian, they just mean freedom for tech bros to do anything. So we should call it tech bro libertarianism, because it's literally the freedom for the tech bros to do whatever the fuck they want all the goddamn time. Ollie Atlas says techno-feudalism would basically be an online beehive. Yeah, I guess you could really describe it like that. It's it would, I think of Ready Player One, that movie, where people live in caravans, and the real fun and the real life is like kind of online. But like there's a material reality. These people struggle, they survive, they're suppressed by the state, like all of this sort of stuff. But like if you're anything like in a capitalistic environment where like, you know, to be a part of that society, you're expected to work. And so like either you get a job on your own, you work for an institution, you work for a government, a big organization, a corporation, what have you. But like everybody's expected to go to work. Like, you know, in a real techno-feudal environment, like techno-feudal environment, like everybody would kind of just be expected to be online when they're not existing out in the physical realm somehow. And existing in the physical realm would just be not being unplugged. Sorry, not being plugged in and like sleeping or something like that. But like as soon as you are able, you should be online because that's where society expects you to be. Dilemma is 85. Going to be hard to quell dissent when no one owns a house. Patriotism is birthed from property rights and defending the country your land is in. It's going to be hard to quell when yeah, nobody owns a house. It's an interesting concept, isn't it? Because yeah, like patriotism in the liberal sense, like liberal democratic society sense, yeah, it comes from people having property. Because when people have property, they have interests in things, and when they have interests in things, they're politically motivated to get involved in the system and contribute to the system. But like when they're completely detached and they own nothing and their life is almost meaningless, then a lot of people form the attitude that they've got nothing to lose. And when people form that attitude that they've got nothing to lose, like you have a lot of political instability. We've been through these cycles many times throughout history and many times throughout modern history, where people, when they feel like they've got nothing to lose, they really take matters into their own hands. And it's exactly why Trump was standing in front of a bulletproof screen yesterday when we were watching the military birthday parade, is because like when people are really screwed over and desperate, they do some crazy shit because their life is meaningless and like they feel like they haven't got much to live. Give people something to give people something to appreciate, and like, you know, they feel like at least they have to positively contribute to the system. But when they're detached and alienated from it completely, that's when people can get pretty fucking dangerous. But like, you know, just some food for thought for you. Libertarianism has lost its meaning in the modern world. I think so. Yes, in like the post modern world, in the post truth era, in the 21st century, yeah, libertarianism has really fallen on its face. Like it was fanciful before, but now it's just like a badge to say like how far you will go to be a free market apologist, and like, you know, kiss the ring of very, very rich and powerful people. Indoctrination, I don't disagree, but the aim is showing enough people the truth to convince them of the truth as we see it. So leaving empty space without pushback makes it seem like you're conceding the point. Yeah, like I think we need to be clear with our language internally and tell people what the difference between, you know, protest and rioting is. I think these categorizations are important to have, because they can be effectual in strategizing. But like, you know, at the end of the day, if you think that it's going to protect us by, yeah, calling something a protest and not a riot and sticking to that line, like your enemy will define the narrative for you anyway. And they don't give a shit what you think about it. They'll call it whatever the fuck it suits them to call it to get to their ends. Like I was like, you know, like classic, you know, Stephen Miller and Trump and all that sort of stuff, calling what's happening in LA an insurrection. Like last time I checked, an insurrection was a lot more organized like that than that, and they wouldn't be doing it in LA. They'd be going straight for Capitol Hill, and they'd be, you know, making it work. They'd be making it work in the political realm as opposed to just taking over a city because they're pissed off about something. So like, you know, these people will call it like that, and like it's up to us to make sense of it at the end of the day. Dilemma is 85. Libertarians have a right and a left, like every other political philosophy. Yeah, interesting. Very interesting. Kind of chaos. The working class has nothing to do but lose their chains. Yes. Yes, and it's been a long road. Like, talk about fucking, you know, long walks in the desert. Um, you know, Mao would be used to this type of stuff. Like, the working class have been walking for a long time through that one, coming to the realization that we really have nothing to lose but our chains. But like, the chains are becoming more sophisticated, I would say, and harder to see. Like, it was very easy to see how you were tied to the system in, like, an 18th century um, world, where basically, you work 16 hours a day on the shop floor, and you might have had half a Sunday off if you were lucky, and you could see that all of your value was being given to somebody else, all of your constructive time and creative ability was being given to someone else, and you could really see how you could taste how you were a slave to that system. But as capitalism has advanced, as history has advanced since then, and we have become more and more kind of placated by liberals, well-meaning liberals, I would say, that have tried to humanize capitalism. We've gotten more and more used to our invisible chains, and now in a digital sense, like, you wouldn't even know your chains there. Like, as was brought up before, like, the way that the digital, like, the surveillance capitalists rule this world is completely in the shadows, and like, you have absolutely no idea the type of information and control they have over you, the data that they have over you, all your own possessions, might I add. Like, data is yours. Like, data really is yours. If you wanted to set up a revolutionary society right now, like this second, change everybody's constitutions and rewrite the UN Charter and say that data sovereignty is a human right and everybody should be compensated for their data. And like, my God, that would revolutionize this surveillance capitalist techno-feudalist society in a heartbeat. But like, we're never going to get that. Let me just check the censored comments up here. People are getting censored. People are getting censored. Voltaire says, you looked into the companies that are trying to buy up land, forcing farmers to sell their land? These new age company towns have Trump's full backing. If you're talking about the freedom cities and stuff like that, yeah, we've been looking into that. If you're talking about like the network state, like what's been going on in and around like California, we have actually been looking at this. Like, they are actually trying to buy up land, and like, this is like fully documented stuff. Like, on the surface, it's real stuff that like they are quite open about too. These old tech bros, when it comes to like working on the real world type of situation, they're not shy about it. Indoctrinathan says they're manufacturing divisions. We need to manufacture unity. Yes, I agree, 100%. It's very hard to do, but like buying into their narratives and the way that they tell the story with what language they use, and getting worried about the semantics of what language they choose to use, will make our unity more and more difficult, I would say. Voltaire says, yeah, YouTube is censoring so much stuff, it's hard to comment. Can I just say, like, I've thought about this over the weekend, and I think this is a really interesting phenomenon. So, like, anyone who gets censored, can you do, like, I'll bring it up on the screen so you can actually see it. Can you do what our fellow revolutionaries are doing right here? They are screenshotting and circling their comments that are being censored. Okay, this happens a lot on YouTube. We talk about political stuff, like, and it doesn't even have to be like nasty political stuff. We watched the Australian federal election like a month ago, and like, just because we said like politicians' names, like someone was like, oh, Peter Dutton might lose this seat, and because they had said a politician's name, it got censored by YouTube. So what I want to do, and I need all of your help to do this, okay? What I want to do is I want to get an archive, like in terms of screenshots, of every time we get censored. And I'm going to like, basically, I'm going to document and archive every time we get censored and someone cuts it in. And then I'm going to feed that into multiple LLMs, multiple large language models, AI, whatever you want to call them. And get the AI to explain to us very specifically if we're being censored, why we're being censored, and any patterns and trends that are going on. So we can document censorship on social media, and like we can use that effectively, like turn around this constraint and turn it into a positive or something. I don't know. Like I wanted to be able to document and understand how the censoring works on social media, especially YouTube. Like we seem to run into that problem less on TikToks, on Twitch. So I definitely want that to be a thing. So like I'm asking you now, or this is a call out. If you're getting censored, and like as Volts saying, like it's happening. It's happening a lot. It's hard to comment. Put your comments in the censored section, and I want to document it. I want to archive it. I want to get information on this because we're going to fight the machine, man. And we need to understand the techno feudalists and the surveillance capitalists just as well as they know us. Bring out your USBs. Don't think data as a single entry point is worth it. Only when grouped. It's interesting. Yeah, like obviously they work off conglomerations of data, but like as we've talked about with social media giants like Meta and stuff like that, they do personalize their attacks on people. And so like yes, there's nothing better than turning people into clusters, and like they're clusters, so they can pin you with an attribute to sell things to you better. But like Meta's done some very specifically honed in individual targeting before. With great results, can I say? You own nothing, and you like it, and like it. Yeah, Klaus Schwab. Yeah, good old Schwab. We were talking about that refrain just before. You'll own nothing, and you'll be happy. You love it. This is the new world. Now, in saying that, though, can I just say, I better give people that are potentially new here the details so they can actually join. They can actually join the Discord and actually add in their censored comments. So here's the invite for the Discord. You know who you are. If you're new here and haven't joined us on Discord yet, please come over. And like we use that's our propaganda vehicle. We drop propaganda, we look at each other's stuff, and like we discuss things over there. So go over, and yeah, that's how you can get your censored comments through. If you're getting the habit today, you'll own nothing. Hit the like button. Yeah, why not? That's your social contribution to society. Yeah, ownership used to come with a level of wanting to contribute more and community building, society building, but now it's just hitting the like button. So the algorithm can cluster you together with other people and get that message across to you. How's the sound going, by the way? Can you hear me okay? I swear YouTube hates me today. Getting hammered. Give me a second. I'll find it. Discord. I'm so pissed off about the sound. I'm so pissed off about that. Can't get over it. Not even about semantics. It's about taking the hits so that normal people can see the ones who are truly in the wrong. If they start shooting people, then people will not lie down. Yeah, fair enough. I get it. But like, if they're gonna start shooting people, like with that, like remember we watched that police chief or commissioner and like warning people not to like bring force to the protest, so they're just gonna shoot to kill kind of thing. Like, they don't want to shoot to kill, they're gonna do it anyway, regardless of how people categorize it. They have their own mandates by the sounds of it. Their own agendas in that regard. All right, so boom. Can we just bring it right back to the point of the stream? Like, what the fuck am I going on about all this? Someone got shot yesterday by a Proud Boy. Get fucked. Really? Can you send me a link, please? I want to see that. Like, not the shooting, but like I want to see information about this. The Proud Boys are at it again. There we go. What was that guy's name? Carl Wittenhouse, out there traversing the states so he could go pop some Black Lives Matter kids with skateboards. Man, commensurate force. We were speaking about this the other day. What is violence? It is when force is incommensurate. Eh? It's when somebody controls like force more than another person, and so it's then deemed violent. That's pretty crazy. So anyway, I've been going on now for an hour speaking about the history of surveillance capitalism and capitalism generally and how we got here, to say this is what Palantir is all about. Palantir is a surveillance capitalist, but a surveillance capitalist of a very particular sort, very much unlike the surveillance capitalists that were developing themselves probably about 20 years ago now. Palantir decided early on in its history that it was going to redefine the surveillance trajectory of the typical Silicon Valley venture capitalist startup regime. It wasn't going to offer its services to the private sector or offer its services to the general consumer class out there and like feed and consume data that way. It decided it was going to service the government. It was going to service the deep state. Specifically, it started with military. And Palantir, one of its first investors was In-Q-Tel. In-Q-Tel, if you're not sure, is the Silicon Valley style investment company arm of the CIA. Yes, the CIA has its own investment company, and it exists to pump money into technologies that potentially can be used for security purposes. And so Palantir got a big boost from the CIA early on in its development and its life. And it survived basically off government contracts. And so Palantir is a very interesting surveillance capitalist. It's a surveillance capitalist that gets access to data, not by providing some digital product that it can then harvest, but like it gets access to existing databases. And what's more data intensive than a state bureaucracy? Like literally, that's already all a bureaucracy is a system of controlling data for administrative purposes. Like that's pretty much what a bureaucracy comes down to. And so Palantir offers its data analytics services. So basically it's machine learning software to governments to help them manage their systems and their processes better. And so like it's always had this reason behind it. So it's a very specific type of surveillance capitalist. And so like they've just been kind of thrown back into the spotlight very recently because they have Trump signed an executive order, one of his first executive orders, I'm pretty sure, in March. And one of those was that, and like this is very interesting. Okay, you got to think about this in the context of who's been like funding Trump. And like, you know, the obvious is Elon Musk, surveillance capitalist for all intents and purposes. But Peter Thiel was a massive contributor to Trump's presidency, not just the second time, the first time too, when like everybody jumped off Trump after that access scandal thing happened, and like everyone was like, you're going to lose the election for sure. Peter Thiel stepped in, supported him, donated to him. So like Trump owes a lot to Peter Thiel, and Peter Thiel is very politically savvy. He's not like Elon Musk, who seems to be a bit of a loose cannon. Peter Thiel buys his time, invests wisely, and will wait a long time to see benefits from things. And so Peter Thiel owns Palantir, and Trump signed an executive order into effect after coming in to the presidency, which was basically a mandate to have high level federal government agencies conglomerating and sharing their data into a large and shared data set, a centralized data set. Now, while this just kind of makes logical sense from an administrative perspective, like if you're running a government and like you need to know stuff, like it would be actually a good idea to have centralized data from all your agencies instead of them acting as individual units that don't speak to each other, which is incredibly inefficient. I've spent enough time in government to know how inefficient that is. But like, you would consolidate your data. Now, you would expect the government to do this themselves. However, obviously, after Trump has signed in that order, he, talks about like reviving, the economy and all that sort of stuff. Instead of creating all of these federal jobs and recruiting federally to put in together a task force to consolidate everyone's data, they're starting to hand off this project piece by piece off to companies. And who's the company that gets a lot of those contracts? Palantir. Palantir has been basically getting the work that is consolidating huge federal data sets into one big one-stop shop operation. And the tagline here from the New York Times is, the Trump administration has expanded Palantir's work with the government, spreading the company's technology, which could easily merge data on Americans throughout agencies. So the big fear here, and like it's legitimate, is that not only will the government be able to pull all of their data together from various agencies to control people better by knowing more about them and surveilling them better as a state agency, but like Palantir, this white horse private company, is going to get access to all that information. And like, what do we know about AI? It's only as good as the data it gets. And like the more data Palantir's machine feeds on, the better their machine learning gets. And like they are at the center of the state surveillance apparatus. Like surveillance capitalists are one good. But surveillance state capitalists, like that's another level of potentiality on privacy invasion and surveillance and the destruction of individual freedoms and liberties. And like Palantir is the center of all of that. It's not as diversified as like other surveillance capitalists in other industries. Palantir seems to be, the big kahuna out there, and they're getting, as a result of that, more and more government contracts. And this one is different to the others, which is just like, all right, this agency wants help with their data, this agency over here wants help with their data. This is bringing them all together and like really being able to profile citizens on a large scale. This is next level surveillance capitalist stuff. This is next level. So something to think about. We'll get into that. Check the stream chat when you get a sec. Dilemmas 85. Weird how if the bastion of freedom America went away, we'd all be so much more free. See, I must admit I've got a different view on that. And I've said it a few times in streams and stuff. Like, when America, the leaders of the free world, like go, and like they're the only people that really hold I guess the liberal democratic order together, I would feel like there's probably there's not much time before everybody else goes pretty authoritarian. Because like, I've said it before, like if America goes down in terms of its freedoms and stuff like that, like there's not going to be any other country that stands up and fills the void and tries to get everyone's freedoms back. Like China's not going to give a shit about that. Maybe the Europeans would, but like, upholding freedom and stuff like that, and the idea of freedom in a liberal society. But like, I really don't have a lot of hope if America moves away from being the bastion of the idea of freedom. We all don't have much hope outside of that. Because like, yeah, authoritarianism seems to be the ticket of the 21st century. And we're moving fast towards it. That's a good what if to explore. Would we be free if the American empire is no more? I speculate heavily on that one, unfortunately, especially with the other players that are waiting in the wings. They don't seem to be advocates for freedom. Palantir is used in Australia and New Zealand. The Five Eyes network use Palantir in all of the countries involved. There you go. And I think Pete Thiel is actually quite interested in New Zealand as well. That's where he set up his like end of the world bunker. So like if shit goes down, you know, like big time, globally, we're in a good part of the world. For the Australians and the New Zealanders in the room. There's a lot of millionaires that have been moving to Australia too, setting themselves up in Sydney in case anything happens. They're all working from home. I'm sure they got better internet connection too. Indoctrination, yeah. Indo feel like Australia might be an island on its own soon. Even Europe doesn't have that. Yeah, there's a bit of a disconnect there in Europe at the moment. There's a lot of authoritarian rising stuff going on, which is pretty scary. Voltaire, he bought citizenship when he had a right wing, when we had a right wing government. Yes, there you go. And what a place to be a citizen of as well. New Zealand. Wonderful, wonderful scenery. Great agricultural sector, so he'll have great food while he watches the world burn. He'll love that, sure. All right, so before I get into more of the Palantir bashing, I think we might have something to watch in terms of a Proud Boy. All right. 1 critically injured, 3 in custody following shooting. 2 people shot during No Kings. No way. Avalava says, I still can't believe that Australia is supportive of Israel. Seeing Penny Wong claim the threat is such a joke. Can we not be a cuckold to the US? Kennecow says, not without a mass workers movement, we can't. There we go. There it is. Hooah! Yeah, which one am I looking at? Let's go with Katie McKenna. What is this? Is this? Oh, it's just it's a news. 2 people shot, including suspect in custody in Salt Lake City, Utah. Hey, enough said. I think my American audience can clarify this, but Utah. Look at that, bro. Can you guys see that? But fuck, this is like the United States, man. I'm telling you, you guys are hardcore. Really. That's some scary shit. Look at the coppers. They're carrying proper assault weapons. The Salt Lake City Police Department is investigating a shooting that occurred during the No Kings protest Saturday night, leaving 1 person with critical injuries. An estimated 10,000 people were marching at the time. It wasn't clear whether the first responding officers had heard or seen the shooting, what alerted them to the incident. Officers received immediate witness information from people in the crowd and pursued the suspect shooter. It was discovered he too had a gunshot wound, Reid said. He was treated and taken to hospital. 2 more people involved with the incident were arrested. The investigators are working to determine what led to the shooting. It appears they were involved in some level of the protest, or at least part of the group that was walking. Looking for a male dressed in black with a gun and asking, which is he? Americans, man. Jeez. Guys with your guns. After the shooting, protesters were emotional. Some cried and hugged each other. An activist was also heard yelling in the loudspeaker, "Don't let them tell you this was a riot. This must be you, indoctrinated." We only want to be heard. We were non-violent. Look at that. And this is in Salt Lake City. That's crazy. This should be the heart of Trump territory. Any motives though? Or any like pin? Like I know you said it was a Proud Boy. Hello. Is my sound off? Hello, I just realized we've spent most of the time just seeing your mouth now. We're just seeing up from your nose. Really? Nothing for the cops yet. Okay. He brought a citizenship. Yeah, I wonder if they've got a like anything on the suspects. Let's see what the other article says. Shooting during the large No Kings protest left one person critically injured. I want to urge everyone in the public to be calm, to give another grace, to look out for one another tonight and over the coming days. The motive is yet to be determined. 10,000 people marched down the street. That's crazy. 3 shots rang out. Is this the guy? A man is taken away in handcuffs on a gurney and yells that he was shot during the No Kings protest. I'm old. I've seen some scary things, but there are moments that I was truly gripped by fear. All right, I guess it will come out. That's crazy though. The shot that we saw before was pretty graphic. My God. I follow right-wing creators for educational reasons, and they are already saying that this was a left-wing lunatic. Same with the 2 Dems that were taken. They always jump saying it's the left. Yeah, well, of course, I guess, right? That's what they should be doing. And it's until verified. It was like when Trump, the person attempted to assassinate Trump. Like everybody was jumping on, whether or not it's going to be a right-wing person or a left-wing person and all that sort of stuff. Who's the real cause of the concern? Unofficial peacekeeper is what the cops said yesterday. Really? Yeah, it's funny, like, talk about doublethink before fires. Like, like having people with guns and calling them peacekeepers, like when the military sends people out to peacekeep and stuff like that. Like, I'm peacekeeping by shoving my gun in your face. Talk about that for a threat. How do you like them apples? Crazy, man. What if they shut down? All right. Now, I did actually want to look at something from Democracy Now! In regards to this. But before we get onto Democracy Now!, I want to have a look at this Congress person talking. Let's have a look at that first. How about this whole Palantir thing? Crazy bastards.
That is trying to
Gentleman yields the nay. Now recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. Goldman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think you raised a
Gentleman yields the nay. Now recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. Goldman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think you raised a very interesting point.
So this is about Palantir. I'm jumping all over the place today. But like this is supposedly a Congress person has brought this up in a hearing about like data generally. He's brought up the fact that he's concerned about Palantir's use and general integration into kind of the state apparatus and like what that means for all Americans. So he's like he's raising the hard questions. He's asking the hard questions. Always trying to discredit a messenger and not the message of the movements themselves. Yes. I think like it's like obviously it's sad for the people that have been shot, but like it's very crushing to have this have happened at all, in the sense that like now a lot of people can just focus their attention on that, like people that are like oppositional to the idea of the No Kings protests. They can just point their misdirected frustrations on that and just say that like, you know, this is what happens when you let these people out in the first place. Shut it down.
Mr. Jordan, Chairman Jordan, wanting to make sure that a warrant is obtained to search Americans' data. So I recognize we're here focused on the Cloud Act, and it's an important issue. I don't dispute that. But in the times we're in, this seems quaint and intellectual, academic discussion. And in reality, what we're dealing with is an administration, current administration, that is trying to categorize, gather, and streamline data of Americans, give it with access by a private company. Now, let me explain a little bit, and I want to ask some questions. Many of you, I'm sure, have heard of Palantir, which is a large data company, has a lot of connections to Elon Musk, to Doge. And in March, Donald Trump issued an executive order that would increase the sharing of all unclassified data between and among federal agencies. It directed
Let's move over to that. Did Trump sign an executive order to consolidate data between major federal agencies into one database? This is my research assistant, if anyone's new and wondering what we're doing here. If you have any problems with the research assistant, let me know. More than happy to consider your concerns. Yes, in March, Donald Trump signed an executive order titled Stopping Waste, Fraud, and Abuse by Eliminating Information Silos. This order mandates federal agencies to dismantle internal barriers to data sharing, granting designated officials full and prompt access to all unclassified agency records, data, software systems, and IT systems. The stated objective is to enhance government efficiency by reducing duplication and improving fraud detection. Sounds great. Like, you know, as I said, like as someone who's worked in government for a long time, like, you know, like making government departments talk to each other is just, it's a godsend, really. But like, you know, let's be honest, databases, AI, like, you know, who's this really helping out? Like I said, you know, Peter Thiel, founder of Palantir, like Trump owes him big time, massively. The kingmaker, Peter Thiel. While the executive order does not explicitly call for the creation of a single centralized database, its implementation has effectively led to a significant data consolidation across federal agencies. Notably, the administration has partnered with Palantir Technologies, deploying its Foundry software to integrate and analyze vast amounts of citizens' data across multiple agencies, including the Department of Homeland Security, and the Department of Health and Human Services. Critics argue that the broad access to sensitive personal information, such as tax records, medical data, and immigration status, could lead to invasive government surveillance and potential misuse of data. The lack of new cybersecurity measures accompanying the order that further exacerbates fears about data breaches and unauthorized access. It's Foundry software. I've heard this come up a bit. Can you please explain what Palantir's Foundry software is? Palantir's Foundry is a data integration and analytics platform designed to help large organizations centralize, manage, and analyze vast amounts of data from different sources. Foundry lets government agencies or companies pull data from many systems into one place, clean it, connect it, and then use advanced tools like AI dashboards to analyze it and act on it. It's often used for things like fraud detection, operational planning, predictive analytics, real-time decision-making. Foundry is especially valued by intelligence, military, and government agencies for its ability to handle complex, sensitive data securely and efficiently. Very interesting, isn't it? Securely and efficiently. And if anyone's worked for a large organization, especially a government organization, you have so many departments that have their own IT systems, they have their own software, and stuff like that. And they just don't speak to one another. And so this would be a godsend for a lot of large scale organizations. Having someone come in and then integrate with your existing systems to pull that data together so you could have a one-stop shop for all of this sort of stuff. In terms of efficiency, this is incredible. But again, there are obvious concerns when it comes to someone like a surveillance capitalist and feeds off data to improve their systems and feeds off data by conglomerating information on individuals to be able to control them. Let's not forget that incredible parameter there. This is about control. Palantir is right up there with people that are doing some crazy control. They're helping the ICE agents right now. So the reason why there are riots happening is because ICE is being directed by Palantir's systems in the same way that the reason that we talk about is not rail all the time, and how they just indiscriminately attacking civilians is because Palantir's helping them target them too. So they're all over the place helping government agencies be more efficient. So the fear is warranted when you have someone like Palantir coming in and doing this stuff. So this is the executive order, but how they work that out is the big thing. The Trump administration has expanded Palantir's work across the federal government in recent months. The company has received more than $113 million in federal government spending since Mr. Trump took office, according to public records, including additional funds from existing contracts, as well as new contracts with the Department of Homeland Security and the Pentagon. This does not include the $795 million contract the Department of Defense awarded the company last week. Representatives of Palantir are also speaking to at least two other agencies, the Social Security Administration and the Internal Revenue Service. Social Security and tax. Hello, people. Defense is one thing, Homeland Security and Pentagon. All right, how do we round up our civilians and them up if they try to resist or are dissenting? But there's nothing like going after their personal information, the stuff that provides them with a little bit of service and security Like the only thing that the government really should be doing for its, people, let's be honest. And like they're going after that information too. They're in talks. I wonder how those talks are going. So Foundry is just their big conglomeration data. It allows an organization to get in there and bring all of its various arms together. Interesting. Creating detailed portraits of Americans based on government data is not just a pipe dream. The Trump administration has already sought access to hundreds of data points on citizens and others through government databases, including their bank account numbers, the amount of student debt, their medical claims, any disability status. Mr. Trump could potentially use such information to advance his political agenda by policing immigrants and punishing critics, Democratic lawmakers, and critics have said. Privacy advocates, student unions, and labor rights organizations have filed lawsuits to block it. Of course they have. Go through the courts. That'll do the job. Palantir's selection as chief vendor for the project was driven by Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency. There you go. Well. Department of Government Efficiency, Doge, Elon Musk, old buddies, with Peter Thiel himself, and Doge helping Palantir get more government contracts in the name of efficiency. Man, some things just don't change. Like, honestly, when they talk about meritocracy and capitalism, you gotta laugh. You gotta laugh at that. Because, everybody knows the saying. If you've worked for long enough, doesn't matter where you are from, the public service, the private sector, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Take that, meritocracy. Some current and former Palantir employees have been unnerved by the work. The company risks becoming the face of Mr. Trump's political agenda, 4 employees said, and could be vulnerable if data on Americans is breached or hacked. Several tried to distance the company from their efforts, saying any decisions about the merged database of personal information rests with Mr. Trump and not the firm. Well, there you go. They're unnerved, not because Palantir is getting access to this information, or that it's being centralized, so it can be easier for any nefarious agent to manipulate. But they don't like Trump's politics and they don't want to use it. Don't worry about the real ethics of the situation. 13 employees signed the letter urging Palantir to stop its endeavors with Mr. Trump. And typical liberal style posturing. Okay? You can work for it and make money off it at the same time. Okay? But you can also pen a letter to someone to say how upset you are. That's great. Very interesting. So this is where we are. Kind of thing. Palantir is strengthening its hold on the deep state, on the state apparatus to engorge its machine learning capabilities. So it gets a win because it develops its productive forces, its means of production. And the state gets a win because it's going to help them get better control of their own citizens. We are so far away from, the free world with this type of stuff that, people living 100 years ago, 200 years ago would not be able to recognize America. I'm just, crazy. Seeing so many people cheer on these people and voting against their own rights just drives me crazy. I feel like maybe I'm the insane one at times, LOL. It's just so blatant and frustrating. I know, right? I remember being in a bit of a tit for tat in a comment section with a right-wing person. And I was just and people voting against their own interests, going for Trump. And then this person, what are you talking about? Voting against our own interests. And like he's just like he's gonna get rid of the migrants kind of thing. I'm like, yeah, okay, I guess that's your interest. And you think it's gonna economically relieve you because like you're gonna get a subset of the working class that like puts downward pressure on your incomes and your quality of life somehow. But like, can't you see all of the other things that are like, you know, voting against your class interests, your freedoms, and like your ideals and values as a free American? Can't you see like how it's compounding here with like he's bringing in the boys, he's bringing in the tech bros, want to chew up your data so they can surveil you and help control you better. Like, you know, these people are there inside his administration, and it's not because they want to learn about politics and they're on an excursion. They're looking for control. Silicon Valley, like I've said before, is rivaling Wall Street. East Coast, Wall Street, West Coast, Silicon Valley. Who's going to win? Who's going to win? Dark Gothic MAGA or traditional red MAGA? And the boys. We'll find out. We'll find out. Indoctrination. And they get to sponsor a shitty military parade too. I couldn't believe it, man. When that's like it was confounding enough for me to have a military parade sponsored by people, like big corporations. But when Palantir came up, like that was it. Like, you know, you really know who it's the who's who of who's really like what companies are really controlling like the defense force and stuff like that in America. Like it was really just the who's who of that shit. So let's continue with this congressperson, see if he says anything insightful or if he's just fear-mongering himself.
Agency heads to authorize and facilitate both the intra and interagency sharing and consolidation of unclassified agency records. Now, a New York Times report in May outlined in great detail how the president has employed Palantir to carry out this executive order, essentially to merge all data from all different executive branch agencies into one single database. Now, it's unclear who would control that database, who would have access to it, what searches would be done, and there seem to be no guardrails about that. Another New York Times article says that
I think that's a good point. Like, what actually are they going to do with this database at the end of the day? Like, who controls the database? The president? Some, like, overreaching federal body? Or does, like, Palantir just, like, forever contract out to the White House, and whoever sits in the White House turns to Palantir, like, picks up the Palantir, like the Lord of the Rings reference that it is, and picks up Palantir and uses it to look into trends across the nation and get access to the information of all the population out there. Crazy. I love that they walked the robot dogs. I can't believe I missed that. They walked the robot dog.
Administration that this database would have 314 different points of data about every American. Literally every American, 314 various categories of data will be consolidated into one database by a private company, Palantir. Now, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle often express concern about government surveillance, about ensuring that we get search warrants in the context of 702, which is a small universe of already obtained information that we know are communications with people of interest from of foreign nationalities. Here, we just have every American's data put into one database with no guidelines, no restrictions. We don't know what Palantir is doing. We don't know what Doge is doing. We don't know what Elon Musk is.
It's a good point, right? Like Americans are always pretty upset when they get surveilled by their own government. Like you got to have a warrant if you're a government agent to go after somebody's information. And so like if you have information in a government agency, because that government agency is providing that service, then it makes sense. But if you consolidate it into one big pile, like who gets access to the pile and for what purpose? And like, do you need a warrant for that? Like, if you want to start searching up on citizens and using the database, like, is there a special agency that runs that? And like, what do they use it for? And like, do you need, like a warrant to just start searching people? Yeah, what could possibly go wrong? Like, seriously. The Voltaire says, well, all social media is pretty much connected, same investors. They will use data for gaining more capital. Yeah. Which is why I like Shoshana's explanation of surveillance capitalist. Because like, it still makes it feel like there is a capitalistic element to it. Like Jonas Varoufakis' techno-feudalism is very final. Like, there's no going back from that. We are living in a feudal machine, and we just don't know that we're all serfs.
Is doing, it essentially creates a one-stop shop for all Americans' data, which, as we're talking about cybersecurity, I'm sure you all agree that creates a tremendous cybersecurity risk if China or Russia were to hack this. Now, the chairman of this committee has said in the past, quote, Congress has struggled, of this subcommittee, Mr. Biggs, Congress has struggled for 4 years with a corrupt presidential administration, meaning the Biden administration, that further expanded the opportunities for the government to spy on its citizens. So is there, I mean, there was nothing in the Biden administration that approximates this collection of data, this opportunity for the government to spy on its citizens. And I'm not even talking about breaking laws under the tax code and sharing tax information with immigration enforcement agencies. I'm not even talking about sharing, the tax information or Social Security Administration information. This is just every piece of data that is out there in the government's control, consolidated with one private company and one database. And so I would ask my friend, Chairman Biggs, to think about whether, if you are truly worried about government surveillance, why are we not doing any oversight of Palantir, its contracts with the government, its consolidation of all Americans' personal information into one database and the cybersecurity risks? And I really hope, in all seriousness, that you will do oversight over that if you do truly care about government surveillance of citizens. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
Whoa. There it is. You've heard it. It's some legitimate concerns. Like, legitimate concerns, I must admit. He's onto something there, the old congressman. All right. Now, I'm going to continue this discussion on Palantir because I want to learn a little bit more about it, but we've run out of time today and I want to go fix my new microphone. So like, we will join up tomorrow, Twitch, same time, different place. Let me give you the Twitch handle and information so you can go and join us over there. Oh, Dang. Now let me find it. Yeah, if you're new and you haven't been part of the fun yet on Twitch, here is the Twitch details. Go and follow over there so you can join in the fun. And here's the Patreon as well. Go over and sign up to Patreon, become a free member, so you can get notifications, and if you can financially support, I would appreciate that as well. But yeah, I want to continue this discussion on Palantir because there's something else that I want to watch. I want to get a better understanding about what this means, and then maybe try to scratch around a little bit and find out if they have landed any other government contracts since the New York Times did their hit piece on Palantir, and like got all this information about like what they're really up to. And I wonder if they've won any government contracts since then. So I'd like to see that. But for now, I've got to go fix my microphone. And we will reconvene tomorrow, like I said, on Twitch. The Twitch files, that's where the serious stuff happens. That's where we can talk over there. We don't get censored. We can watch shit and not get hit up by copyright stuff all the time. So yeah, come join us for the Twitch files. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, I will see you all tomorrow. And until next time, please remember, I am, you are, we are MysterE. See you all tomorrow. Cheers.